and welcome to More Than Clothes with me, your host, Sarah Ryan. In this podcast, we'll explore the connection between style, identity, confidence, and mindset, and why getting dressed is never just about clothes. If you've been listening since the first episode, you might remember back to when I did my introduction to myself and I shared with you a little bit about my journey. And there was, in hindsight is 2020, but looking back on my own journey, I know where there were flaws in my thinking, and it connects with what I want to tell you here today. What I believed back then in my late teens, early 20s, was that you had to have everything figured out. You had to know what you wanted to be when you grew up. Everything had to be mapped out. As I said, you ticked the boxes. And as I realized, and what caused me a lot of stress, anxiety, was that I was attempting to tick boxes that were not my boxes. And I thought I had to be hitting certain milestones by certain ages. I thought there were destinations to arrive at. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I made in those years, I think, was thinking that I had to arrive at somewhere. I had to be somebody at a certain point in time. And if I didn't, then that was considered a failure. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I'd say go back, and it might just give you a little bit of a better understanding as to my mindset back then and some of the new ways of thinking that I had to adopt to move forward and to be happier with who I am today. And just to touch on the other episodes we've talked about, if you're just joining in on this one, we covered why women struggle so much with identifying their style, common mistakes that people make. We covered the pressure of judgment, and we questioned whether style is actually vanity. But today we are going to touch on something new that I think is going to be, hopefully, a game changer in how you think about your style. So going back to my journey and how I was trying to create this kind of cookie cutter life for myself that I thought I should be living, I got it wrong. And I wish they taught this stuff in schools because it would have saved me a lot of heartache. But what if we approached our style and our identity like a prototype? It's not something that is a finished product, but rather it's something that is constantly evolving. I thought that at the age of 20, I had to be something. I thought at the age of 25, I had to have certain things figured out. I was not thinking of myself as something that was evolving all the time. And that is exactly what we're doing. We are constantly on a journey of becoming. And that is true for your style also. When I work with clients, I'm very clear with them when I say, when we finish after our 8 weeks of working together, it's not like you have everything figured out and you never have to think about it again. That is not the case, but you do gain the tools to be able to evolve and do things much quicker. But if we think of our style or identity as, aha, now I have it figured out, we're not going to win that one. You are going to face problems if you are thinking that way. It is better to think about constantly testing, figuring things out, adjusting, and that is life. It is not a destination until indeed we meet our final destination. But until that moment, we are evolving. Clients often think, or people often think, that they're going to arrive at a moment where they say, I have it all figured out. But of course, life doesn't work that way. It would be easier if it worked that way, but it doesn't. And the sooner we make peace with that, I think we are going to Go easier on ourselves. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I certainly did. And if you are doing the same, maybe you can just cut yourself some slack if you have been thinking about, geez, I'm whatever age, I haven't got this figured out. You're not supposed to, because life will continually change. The catalyst for those changes are varied. And from my experience when I'm working with my clients, a lot of them will come to me at a different life stages. So they might have a change of career, or they might be going back to work, or they might be getting a promotion that requires them to dress in a certain way, or they're, becoming management, or maybe even CEO. Relationships change things significantly. I've worked with many clients who have become single after divorce, whether it was their choice or their partner's choice. And that leaves somebody asking, who am I now? When your body changes, just going through life as a woman, your body is going to change. And we have been taught that if our bodies don't look a certain way, then they are not of value, that it's something that people do not want to see or should not be seen. That is bullshit. As women, our bodies go through phenomenal changes because they're capable of phenomenal things, but we are so hard on ourselves about it. So body changes can leave you feeling, well, my style doesn't work for my shape anymore. What do I do now? Or even something like hair loss. I've worked with clients going through chemotherapy, they've lost their hair. And that creates a massive shift in identity and in confidence as well. But no situation is ever static. It is constantly evolving, and we need to keep one eye on that. Because if your identity is evolving, then your style must evolve also. If you want from now on, think of identity as a synonym for style. To me, the sooner I made that connection, that what I wear is not separate to who I am, to my beliefs, to my values, to my behaviors, the sooner you can bring those two things together and think of them as one, it will make an awful lot more sense. So let's think about this prototype mindset. If you're thinking about a product, it's very unlikely that you're going to create the very first prototype and it's going to be perfect. No, you'll do some testing, you'll make adjustments, you'll refine it, and you'll improve it over time. It is never final. Even if we think of the likes of, iPhones or something like that, they would have made dozens of prototypes, and still it's ever evolving. So if we apply this same prototype mindset to our style, what would that look like? You would try things, try new things, that is. I've seen so many women who go out and they buy the same things time and time again, and they wonder why they're in a style rut, because they never try new things. When you try those new things, observe how they feel. Does it make you excited? Does it make you a bit giddy? Does it feel like you? From there, you keep what works and you adjust or change what doesn't work. So style becomes more of an experimentation, not pressure. Think of it as playful, curiosity. We've got to a place where we think we have to have perfection all the time because we see it on social media. Social media, again, has a lot to answer for. We need to get back to being playful. When we stop taking ourselves so seriously, everything becomes easier and a lot more fun, I have to say. But I know that even though I'm saying, treat this as a prototype, go out and test, don't take it too seriously, I know that many women will delay experimenting because they feel like they want to get it perfect. They want certainty. If I try this on, it has to work. There's so much pressure. And if I don't get it right, it's a failure. I'm the failure. I didn't get it right. What if it doesn't suit me? What if people judge me? What if I get it wrong? But you'll never get out of that style rut or that place where you're feeling stuck if you don't begin to experiment. Because experimentation is how clarity is created. I would also say this: you cannot think your way to style clarity. You have to put it into practice. So even if you are collecting images on Pinterest, it's a nice stepping stone. But until you actually start to play around with clothes on your body, you won't know the full effect. Stop waiting for that perfection, that to get it all your ducks in a row before you actually go out and experiment. I say to people all the time, go to the shops, leave the cash and the credit card at home. You are not buying. You will be amazed at the freedom that comes with that. Because we think that when we go out shopping, we're going out with the purpose to buy something. So it has to be right. I'm spending money on it. I've got to get this right. Straight away, there's stress there. There's pressure there. It is not fun. That is not the way to shop. Instead, leave the cash at home. Go out. If you have somebody that you think that might be fun to do with, bring them with you. If not, great, do it by yourself. Go out and try the things that scare you a little, that excite you, that you feel like, oh, I could never wear that. Try it on. Go into the changing rooms. Try it on. Take a few photos and leave the items back because you are not buying them today. You are simply experimenting. Now, the wonderful thing about this approach is when you try something on that is outside the norm for you, you've got to keep an eye out for when you say to yourself, yes, this feels like me. Those are moments of coherency. They're glimpses into who you are becoming. And they often happen when you take that pressure off yourself and you're simply having fun and being curious, being playful. So I really want you to watch out for those clues, those things that make you feel alive. That's a good way to think of it. When I do things that make me feel alive, there's clues there as to the person I am or I am becoming. I get that feeling when I'm speaking on stage or something like that and I deliver a good talk or something. That gives me a buzz and I think, I want to do more of this. This is really cool. This is what I should be doing. So watch out for those moments of coherency, moments of clarity, because that is when your identity is speaking. Now, I'll say that those moments can be rare. Why is that? Because life gets in the way. Routine gets in the way. The mundane things that we get caught up in get in the way. Maybe if you've been wearing a uniform for work for the last 30 years, you may not have had those opportunities to get playful and curious with what you've been wearing. Maybe you've been required to wear really practical clothing. Maybe you're trying to get kids out the door and you're rushing through your mornings. And dressing is for convenience rather than expression. But if you're feeling stuck, you need to make that space for a little bit of experimentation. If you want different outcomes, you need to start doing things differently. So I want to invite you to do some experimenting. And I'm going to give you a few prompts, but feel free to take the reins and try on things that are not in this list of things that I'm going to give you. So how can you experiment? Well, one thing you could do is try a different silhouette, particularly if it's a silhouette that you normally avoid. I'm used to tucking things in to highlight my waist. So to change things up, I might wear an oversized shirt buttoned up so that it disguises my waistline, and wear something full on the bottom as well. That's not something I usually do, but hey, maybe there's something to be learned from that. Something else you can do is maybe invite some color into your life instead of defaulting to wearing black, which I know a lot of people do as well. So maybe one of the things you do when you go out on this experiment, you can say, okay, I can try anything on as long as it's not black. You could also revisit something that you once loved. Many of us are holding on to things for years, which is fine. So if you have those items, maybe revisit them. See how you feel about them. You might learn that, you know what, this is absolutely not me anymore, and you'll be happy to let it go. Something that's also really easy to do is combine pieces in new ways. So work with everything that is already in your wardrobe. That's the best place to start because you're not spending money. And that's something I do when I work with a client. I put them on a shopping ban. For the time we are working together, no shopping. So we are just working with what is already in the wardrobe. So combine those pieces in new ways. I'm sure there's endless combinations and permutations of how you could put those things together with what you've already got in the wardrobe. And be aware, not everything is going to work. That is the whole point, though. Every experiment gives you data about yourself. This is the prototype mentality. We test, we adjust, we refine, we try again, and we move on. There is absolutely no failure here in experimentation. Something will either work or it will teach you something, but both outcomes are useful. I will say that when you are trying things on, if something works for you, ask why. If something doesn't work for you, ask why. If you're simply going to look in the mirror and go, oh, that's terrible, I'll get this off me as quickly as I can and move on to the next thing, that is a pointless exercise because you haven't learned anything. There is information in doing this exercise if you ask why. Why does something work? It's the silhouette, it's the color, it just feels like me. Why does something not work? It's the silhouette, it's the color, it doesn't feel like me. That is useful information. So you can move towards the things that work for you and move away from the things that you know now that don't work for you. By the way, this can be applied for anything in life, not just working with your wardrobe or going out shopping. If you're in a career that doesn't work, that is part of the prototype process. You're testing things. You can always change and adjust and evolve from things. Same with relationships. So think of life as just a prototype. It's an experimentation. Have fun with it. So I want to leave you with a few questions. I like to ask questions at the end of a podcast to get you thinking. So, first question. When was the last time you truly felt like yourself in what you were wearing? There's an awful lot of information in that. If you can think back, you will definitely get some good information from that. Think about what you were wearing and what was it that felt different. Get specific about this. Was it the textures? Was it the silhouette? Was it how it made you feel? So really start to notice the clues. If you do that following this episode today, you will gain an awful lot. Just to summarize what we've been talking about today, your style and your identity, remember we're using this synonymously, it's not something that you arrive at. You don't just say, aha, I'm here, I've got it, that's it, I don't need to try anymore. It is something you grow into. It evolves as you evolve. Instead of trying to perfect it, think of it like a prototype. You test, you adjust, you refine. And all the while you are moving closer to the version of yourself that feels most authentic. Because style is never just about clothes, it's about becoming. If we can adopt that mindset, everything will shift. I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope you enjoyed that and you learn something from it, and you take on the idea that I have now taken on, that there is no destination. We are just simply moving forward, learning, testing, refining. If you're interested in working with me, you can find me on my website, sarahRyanOfficial.com, and book a clarity call there, and we can discuss the possibility of working together. And of course, you can join my community, the Identity and Style House, if you want to be part of a group of women who are on a similar journey of reclaiming their identity and their style. Thank you so much for listening to this series of More Than Clothes with Sarah Ryan. I do hope you enjoy it, and I hope you'll come back and join me again in the future. Take care. Bye-bye.